Good morning.
Do you accept that you were wrong to be so optimistic?
Well, if we get a trade deal, which is, of course, the government's policy and has been the policy, we will get continuity of all those agreements. And when yesterday in the House of Commons, I had a whole range of mostly Labour MPs standing up and saying, well, if we don't get this agreement, this is what will happen. My argument was, but we will get continuity of all of them if we get a deal and a withdrawal agreement agreed with the European Union. So it is in their own hands. Those who want continuity have to vote for it.
And if we don't, you accept that we are going to crash out of some quite important deals that we have at the moment?
Well, there's always a possibility that we don't get them. We're in fact well advanced with some of those biggest ones. To try to put it into context, of the 11% of our trade that is covered by the EU free trade agreements, 20 of those 40 make up less than 0.8 of 1% of all our trade. But the biggest ones, Switzerland itself makes up more than a fifth of all of that. And then you've got Canada, and we've got the EEA, and South Korea, and you've got the South African countries.
Can we just separate this out? The Switzerland case is a bit different because it's not a full deal, is it? We're just rolling over for a time-limited period.
It's continuity, but in fact it goes for 3 years beyond even the end of the IP.
Can I turn to South Korea? Hugely important growth area for British trade. We went as a programme a year or two ago. The problem is this, isn't it? That our economy is roughly double the size of South Korea's. The EU's economy is 10 times larger than South Korea's. So when the deal was done between the EU and South Korea that we benefit from at the moment, the South Koreans pressure was applied to them to allow various things to happen that wouldn't happen if it was just us and them. And that is why, isn't it, you're not managing to roll over this deal with South Korea?
No, that's not, in fact, correct. There are two elements here. There is the rollover, the continuity of the current agreement in the event of no deal to provide a bridge between where we are now and where we would be then. Then there's a second phase, which is what would the new trading relationship beyond that look like?
But on the first of those phases, the South Koreans know that they're in a much more powerful position, which is why at the moment, isn't it, they won't roll it over?
No, I think the problem is that in terms of the South Koreans, they didn't believe that no deal was a possibility. When I was there towards the end of 2018, I impressed upon them that no deal was a possibility. Their view at the time was, we think you'll definitely come to a deal with the EU, therefore there is no point in us putting in the preparation and the time for a no-deal contingency. Now, I think that they've since come to the view that there may well be no deal, and therefore they need to make those preparations.
Are we going to get a deal with South Korea, do you think?
Well, we are making a lot of progress, and we would hope that we can... Are we going to get a deal? Well, I hope we will by the time that we get there. Of course, what I hope is that we don't need to bring in these contingencies because we get an agreement with the European Union that automatically provides the rollover. Now, as I said, there's a second phase, though. Even if we get the rollover, during the implementation period, then we have to assess what our future trading relationships will look like with these countries once we are outside the European Union.
Can I turn to the votes today, which we were hearing about from Laura Kunsberg 20 minutes or so ago? A real possibility, it seems, that some Brexit supporters on the Conservative benches will vote against the government and indeed that the government could lose. Does that have any consequences?
Not in terms of the legislative position or the government's stated aims, but I think that it's important that we understand that we are not an internal debating society in Parliament. What we say is looked at and listened to by those that we are negotiating with. They'll be looking to see whether Parliament is showing consistency, because in the debates and the votes we had recently, there were two things. One was that Parliament said we don't want there to be no deal, and that we will sign up to the Prime Minister's deal if we are able to get changes to the Irish backstop. And our European partners will be watching our debate and listening today to see if they get the impression that if they were to make those concessions, Parliament would definitely deliver on that agreement.
Right, and so you're saying if the government were to be voted down today, they would not have that impression.
I think that there's a danger that we send the wrong signals, and I think that we need to understand that the public want us to leave the European Union, but they would prefer us to leave the European Union with a deal. And therefore, Parliament's got a duty to ensure that we send the correct signals that represent those views of the British people and represent them too those we're negotiating with. I spoke to one of my senior French colleagues at the weekend, and that was exactly the message that he was delivering.
What do you say then to Conservative MPs who are at the moment, intending to vote against the government. What will the consequences of their actions be, do you think?
Well, I think that there's a tendency still to think that this is some kind of academic and ideological purity exercise. This is about the raw politics of negotiation, and this is about sending signals about continuity and trustworthiness in negotiation.
And in the longer term, because this is, as we were hearing earlier from Laura Kuenssberg, we were first told this was going to be a very important day, then that it wasn't, then it is again. Are you saying then that this day and that the set of votes we have this evening are seriously matter in terms of the negotiations that are going on? In other words, there is something of substance happening today.
I think that what is happening today is about whether we can display to our European partners that the Prime Minister has the support of the House in continuing to negotiate changes to the Irish backstop. And I think that there's a willingness on the part of our European partners to accommodate us, but they will be wanting to see that Britain would be able to deliver if they were willing to compromise on that.
Liam Fox and Chris Master as well. Thanks both very much.